Hi, I want to welcome you all to the session. The catchy name, the growing drone phenomenon, creating order out of chaos. You will learn in the next hour, it is not as dismal as that there's a whole new world to be conquered out there, in the sense that very few of us in the course of history are honored to be part of a major transformation in a form of, if you will, transportation or delivery. And here we are, the middle level of Earth is being captured, if you will, by a new technology, maybe arguably an old technology, but it's out there. And we have three very qualified people to talk about it. What hopefully you will learn today is the aspects of commercial drones. Now, you know there are, in a sense, three categories. There's the military, the government use, which gives drones kind of a name that's a little bit pejorative, some people don't like. And then there's the consumer portion, which is growing very quickly. It's triple-digit growth. I'm pleased to say I head the Consumer Technology Association, and that's where a lot of our interest in. But the real money right now, to be perfectly frank, is in the commercial section, that big section in the middle, where there's a whole new set of uses being created, a whole new ways of doing business, saving money, and we're going to hear about them today. And what I want to do is I want to start with the panelists, and they're going to introduce themselves and essentially say what your connection is in history with drones in under 2 minutes. So why don't we start with you, Russ?
Thank you very much. The hard part's under 2 minutes, right? So I'm president of a company called Clayco, and we are an integrated building business, developers, designer, builders, et cetera. And we saw early on through our virtual design business that drones could provide us a vantage point that would really change the way we do business. Our built environment industry hasn't seen innovation in 100 years. And the vantage point and the vehicle of drones and the technology that we can employ with it allows us to have a real look at really changing the way we build buildings in the future.
That was great and quick. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Ellman. I run the drones practice group at Hogan, Lovells law firm. I am a drones lawyer. Yes, there are drones lawyers these days. I also run the newly launched Commercial Drone Alliance. So I work on behalf of the industry to help move the commercial drone industry forward. But my background is in the federal government. I worked for many years in the Obama administration, both at the White House and at the Department of Justice. Most recently, I was tasked with leading drones policy development at the Department of Justice and working with the interagency group tasked with considering the safety and privacy and security concerns that come along with integration of drones into our domestic airspace. But there are so many benefits, and look forward today to talking about how technology can really help solve a lot of the policy issues that we have with drones and how we can do that together.
Great. And Dave, what's your connection? I think you have actually a very long connection, right?
Yes, I'm the old guy. I've been working on this, just kidding. Automating aviation and automating what we can do in the airspace has been a dream of mine since the 70s, being a teenager in South Africa and flying small airplanes, radio-controlled airplanes, and really getting bored pretty quickly about flying them myself and wanting to do perfect aerobatics in an automated way. And so a long, long time working towards this goal of getting the airspace truly democratized on the back of automation of aviation. We have a very short video. It's like 1 minute long. We could run that right now, if that's okay.
Please.
And we'll talk about that more. I'm not nearly as interesting myself as what we think the future holds here. Is that video up? We could run it.
I'm sure it'll be here in a second.
I'm just really excited. Flying 100 drones. It's the first time in the U.S. that we'll be doing
this. Is the Intel video. I apologize. We will see the Intel video first, or not. While we're waiting, and you can run that other video, the Google video, anytime you'd like. So, Russ, you have a background also in flying. Could you just describe that?
Yeah, I was a military aviator for 20 years, and you know, it really applies a lot to what we're trying to do in this business because of the technologies associated with it. It's not just the vantage point that drones or UAVs give us. They allow us to employ a technology that can do remarkable things in my industry, but across industries, from insurance to energy et cetera. So yeah, and being able to have a sense for the risks that are associated with aviation, the privacy issues that are associated with aviation that currently exist today, really aren't new ones that are presented by UAVs. They're really an extension of what have always been there, and what we have to do is accommodate the drone or UAV vehicles within existing regulations.
So you were one of the very first, if not the first, to get
in our industry. Yeah, we were the first, one of the first 4 that got their exemptions. Yeah.
And could you explain that and what it was?
Yeah, well, what it was is that our virtual design group realized that we were doing a lot of scanning that was tied to the ground, right? We would do a scanner, we'd do existing conditions, we'd take that data and create a point cloud file and then be able to integrate that with our design and do a lot of virtual things for our clients, right? Well, once we realized that we could do that on the platform of a drone, ideas just exploded. And so we applied for it early on. Lisa was a great help in that. I'm going to take full credit for it, though, since we actually got it and it's working out. No. And so that's kind of where it began. So we got the 333 exemption. And
will you explain what that means? Because assume that
it's really the
like
authorization that the FAA gives you to legally fly a commercially operated drone or UAV in the U.S. airspace.
And how many of those have they given in the last 10 years until you got one?
Well, 0.
Okay, so you were the first.
Yeah, in your industry.
In my industry, yeah.
September 2014 was the first 7 exemptions were issued to Hollywood film companies, and soon after, Russ and his company were the first construction companies to get what's known as this 333 exemption. Just as background, right now it's currently illegal to operate drones commercially here in our national airspace without a special permission from the FAA. That special permission comes in a few different forms. The least burdensome to get for industry is what's known as the Section 333 exemption. Section 333 is named after Section 333 of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012, which mandated that the federal government integrate drones into our national airspace. And
so if you were a consumer hobbyist, you could do whatever you want pretty much, but if someone gave you $1 or it was for commercial purposes or you were a company, you couldn't do anything.
Exactly. It's
and then the Congress changed the law and they said, you FAA, come on, start giving some exemptions here.
Right. Well, the Congress mandated that the federal government integrate drones, including commercial drones, into our national airspace. But we've been flying drones as hobbyists or recreationally for many years, or for decades. Does anyone here actually fly drones just for fun? Okay, so you've been doing so for years with no issues. It's an intent test that actually comes from the aviation. In aviation, there's traditionally a difference made between commercial versus recreational use of a vehicle. But there has not been broad authorization yet for commercial or any non-recreational use of UAS or drones. But that is coming. The good news is that is coming very soon. There was a proposed rule issued last February, and we anticipate seeing a final rule here this summer that will broadly authorize the commercial use of drones across our country.
So how about, so construction, it's okay? Have other people gotten it in the construction business?
Oh, yeah. Now, construction is probably the largest percentage. Construction and design. I mean, we use it more for design than construction. And there's a lot of application.
That?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
We'll, for example, we'll fly a proposed site. And we'll take the image of that site, we'll run it, create a point cloud file from it, and then we will use our virtual design, put it on it, and find out what's the best layout for that building, what's the best footprint for it, what's the best energy positioning of it on a site, as well as being able to do something as practical as develop a takeoff of how much dirt do you have to remove, where do you have to move it, and we can do that in 2 days as opposed to 2 weeks. 2
days as opposed to 2 weeks. Yeah. That saves a lot of money.
And a fraction of the cost. Is
it better?
It is better because it's malleable. We can, with the digital images, we can move it. We can have a client sitting in a room in our virtual design room, and they can see their building situated different ways on site. We can show them how the energy consumption changes with the different orientation. We can show them different footprints, and it all adjusts as you move it.
And do you envision that's going to be the normal part of the construction process for like in 5 or 10 years for everyone?
It already is. I think what we're going to see in 5 or 10 years, what we're looking at is, I mean, our industry hasn't changed in 100 years. at least 100 years. This has the ability to change the way we do things to the point of being able to automate the construction process, to be able to do what we thought was unthinkable when you first started building a car, that robots would actually build them. Well, we'll be building buildings from control rooms inside of 10 years, I believe. This technology, the drone, the UAV is just a platform. It's a very stable platform that can carry a camera and technology that allows us then to create data. And you combine that with machine learning, and the computing power of the cloud is going to open up endless possibilities relative to automation in our business.
I have one final question, then I want to go to the wing video, which is clearly ready at this point. Do you use any unique software, or do you buy it off the shelf, or do you have, how does it work?
There's a number of different things, and I'm the last guy to try to figure that out for you. That's, you know, what I learned about being a president is to not know how to do it, but know how to get people that know how to do it. So yeah, there's a number of different programs that we use ultimately to crunch it out to a practical, you know, program.
Okay, all right, now back to Google. Sorry about that. Let's just, if we could show the wing video, then we could move on, all right?
Yep.
So this is the time for the wing video.
Throughout history, there have been a series of innovations that have each taken a huge chunk out of the friction of moving things around. Project Wing aspires to take another big chunk of the remaining friction out of moving things around in the world.
The global issues that face us right now are pretty dramatic. Moving stuff around has a huge impact on the carbon footprint of humanity. We have simply got to change it. I'm here to truly democratize the airspace. Make the airspace something that every human on the planet gets to use.
How do we create a system that lets us use flight to make life better on the ground while keeping the sky pristine and quiet, and make it as safe as possible? We're starting to reach out to other people in the industry and to governments, because this is not a problem that any one company can solve by itself. But working together, we can get to this future surprisingly quickly.
That is so cool. So tell me, how did you get involved in this? Why did you join Google, and where are you with your milestones to get where you want to go?
Okay, so I had built a company called Athena Technologies in the 90s and 2000s. Sold it in 2008 to Rockwell Collins, a big avionics, probably one of the leading avionics companies in the world, and spent 4 years with them integrating the business into Rockwell, and then retired. And retired is overrated. Retirement is definitely overrated. And I'm a geek. I have a PhD. I'm a control theory and dynamics guy, and I was about to start something new when X called. And long story short, I agreed that this is a great place to go and do what I really dream of, what I've dreamt of for 4 decades now, which is, in an automated fashion, getting access to the airspace. So today I don't own a business jet for one simple reason. I don't want to have to fly it, because if I have to fly it, that means I need to be a really proficient pilot, and I simply don't have the time or the enthusiasm to fly the number of hours that I would need to be really good. I'd like it to be really automated, and automated in the sense of calling it up on my phone and saying, okay, I want to go from where I am right now to where I want to be. And it should just take me there, and there shouldn't be a need for any humans to be involved. Right? That's my big dream. And so think of the future of aviation, where anything that you want to move, including humans, from where it is to where you want it, can happen the way birds fly. Birds don't fly following roads, because birds conserve energy. They go straight where they want to go, and they get there in a really efficient and effective way. And they get there when they want to get there. And we should do the same. We should have true democratized access to the airspace in order to move things around in a really efficient way and exploit that direct access to change our lives. And it's amazing when you think about the idea of, if I'm on the beach and I feel like a burger and I also forgot my suntan lotion, I really would prefer not to get in the car and drive for an hour, go and get stuff, come back. The fog rolled in the meantime, I missed the whole day at the beach. I'd rather just call it in. Calling the burger, calling the suntan lotion, and it should show up where I am in 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, not 2 or 3 or 4 hours. So this is transformational, where stuff gets from where it is to where you are in a time period that is measured in minutes, which is almost not measurable to you. Because as you're doing your daily life, if you decided I want to organize a dinner for a bunch of friends, you'll spend 5 minutes just making phone calls and getting people to show up and organizing, table mats and so on. And in the meantime, all the food that you need, or all the ingredients, or the prepared stuff, whichever way you want to do it, or the wine, or whatever you need, can be already called in with really simple interaction to your device, and it shows up. So you don't need inventory, and the whole idea of a low inventory, just-in-time shared economy is truly transformational to humanity. And then extend that to the future where it includes moving us around, people. And think of the traffic jams. Think of all the stuff that makes it hard. Most of the time you want dinner, or you want to go to a sports event, or you want to go to a movie. At the same time, a lot of other people want to be on the roads. And that means that there's tremendous impedance to getting those transactions of moving stuff around from happening. And what we're aiming at here is democratized access to being able to go up and over and get it done super, super efficiently. And so it's really built on the long history and all the wonderful experience and learning that has happened over the past 100 years, but let's transform that into an automated new world where all of those lessons are basically already incorporated into the automated systems, and those automated systems will just do it forever, over and over and over again, never get bored, never make mistakes, never have headaches, and allow us to have access to the airspace to do things in a way that today we really don't have. Today we have only access to the airspace if you're willing to go through a number of hoops, one of the main ones being the security lines at an airport. And so, there's tremendous impedance to being able to get stuff done today just because of the fact that it's not truly available to everyone to use.
It's a great vision. So where are we?
We're really close. So having worked on this for a long, long time, the company that I built and sold was all about automation, mostly in the UAV business, in the military side, but we also did several commercial applications. And if you think of where we are today, and we look at the main focus of the small drone world today, it's really low altitude airspace, below 500 feet. That's typically, in populated areas, below 500 feet is typically where no fixed-wing aircraft are. A few helicopters are around, and basically it's open airspace. So by launching in that domain, we're not displacing any manned aviation community, and if we can do it in a very integrated way, which we can, using technologies that concepts such as NextGen in the US, CSAR in Europe, which is an integrated, collaborative airspace environment, using those same thoughts, making a sort of microcosm version of that happen with industry taking real leadership, real sense of responsibility, bringing resources, not the least of which is money and people, and making it happen, and really enable this sort of springboard event, which is these great ideas that the traditional aviation world has thought of. Here comes this whole new world of consumer-facing utilization of this airspace with resources, with enthusiasm, with passion, with people, make it happen in short term. And from there on, we can expand back out into the higher regions of airspace and the larger vehicles, but that can happen on its own timeline after, in a way, we've earned our way forward by proving that we can do this stuff safely, respectfully, securely, and make it all happen in an integrated way. And this is not, we're not talking 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We're talking like right now. Right.
So what's the next big step that we, as the public, in a sense, can expect to see?
So as Lisa mentioned, there's the Part 107 rule that's coming out sometime soon.
Not the government. I'm talking about
by
what
industry?
you're working on.
So what we're doing right now is you have to make all this stuff happen in parallel. So if you look at the airplanes that were in that video, it's somewhat incidental. We can crank out a new airplane in a month, so that's really not the problem. The challenge is all the automation subsystems, integrating with things such as how does air traffic control speak to airplanes today? How do airplanes speak to each other? How do they know about their current presence? So we're launching, for example, I talked about this at the ICAO conference early last year in Canada. we're launching, together with some industry partners, a micro, or maybe it's a nano, ADS-B transceiver that literally is going to come out at a price point in the tens of dollars versus the thousands of dollars.
So Google will be offering a product to...
No, we're working with industry partners, and we'll talk about that at the right time.
Okay.
But this concept, super low-cost transceiver that allows airplanes to know about each other on their own, automatically they're talking to each other. There's a future version of that that really builds on ideas around the Internet of Things. How do things know about each other and how do they communicate with each other? That enables us to build an integrated airspace, an integrated environment where all these devices know about each other and can collaborate with each other to not collide, to do planning such that it all works together.
So will that be a chipset that's offered, or will it be a license that's offered on a RAN basis?
There are basically a number of companies, small and large today, that are pushing these out as actual products, and that for very low cost can be integrated onto the vehicles.
And when can we expect that?
Easily within the next several months. And
oh, really? Okay, so that's a big announcement.
These are big deals, and we talked about launching that back in February last year at ICAO, and that's a big deal, and it inspires industry to come forward with concepts. The other things that are happening are, and it's not only X that's doing this, or Project Wing, the industry is doing this. The automation systems are getting way, way, way more reliable than ever before. They're getting way more capable of operating in very stable, controlled operation of the vehicles, even in really, really rough, turbulent environments. And so these kinds of things make it possible to build safety cases, and this is kind of the other big push that I spend a lot of time on and that we spend a lot of time on. And the industry, such as what Lisa just announced, the alliances, there are a number of them around. We're working together to respect the safety case culture that aviation has taught everyone to build, how to do that, and how to build systems that meet those same safety levels, the expectations that both the civil aviation authorities and the public around the world have come to accept as acceptable levels of safety, and show that the automated small drones can accomplish equal or better. That is the threshold or the bar that we all should take responsibility for meeting in order to play together in this airspace, because it's a shared airspace.
Okay, I got that. So what I heard you say is the use case is phenomenal amount of convenience for people in terms of getting things delivered. And we're already seeing in third world countries medicine being delivered by drones, things like that. But I also, implicit in what you were saying with the straight line of the bird, what I heard was green, energy efficiency, saving a tremendous amount of fossil fuel.
Yep. So think of a 5-ton truck moving. The majority of packages that get shipped around today are small, under 5-10 pounds. Think of giant 5-ton trucks stuck in traffic jams, and typically they're not electric, and spewing fossil fuel combustion products into the atmosphere. And then think of that being done by electric vehicles that can move these small packages around. Also, the kind of things that Russ is talking about. Imagery, this is a big deal, right? The airborne platform for providing imagery is a big deal for a UAV, for a drone. And that's, again, more access to different vantage points that humanity, typical normal people, have not had access to. So
imagery, that's what you were talking about. It's also for agriculture and for other things.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently working with insurance industry. Our Lyft is our UAV business, and Lyft is working closely with the insurance industry, working closely with energy companies, cell towers. Everything can be done so much less expensive and safer. A good example, we were issued an exemption to fly a drone in downtown Chicago. It took us, weeks and weeks and weeks to get. Okay, we had to block off 16 blocks for a 6-pound drone. Okay, 2 weeks after that, we flew a helicopter in downtown Chicago. All we had to do was really fly a flight plan. And by the way, this was a 20,000-pound helicopter full of fuel, setting. But it's a very common practice is the point. It wasn't like that, oh my goodness, that was very, very common. But so what the drones present is just simply the same problem, and it's actually a lower risk than it is of things that we're doing now. So there is the energy savings, it's safety, it's just better.
And one way to think about this is the analog world experienced this dramatic transformation when digital technology was invented. So digitization really transformed the analog world. Think of the airspace today as maybe a 1 or 2-bit solution. There's only 2 or 4 sort of categories: big air transports, private aviation, and maybe helicopters and sport aviation. We want to transform this into maybe 128 bits or 256 bits resolution of accessible vehicles and categories of vehicles that can transit the airspace and accomplish all kinds of missions, as opposed to only 2 or 3 or 4 different categories. It's really digitization of access to the airspace and access to information, access to moving stuff around.
Okay, we heard you had a big announcement this week. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So this week we just launched, actually yesterday, the Commercial Drone Alliance, which is a group of companies that have gotten together to try to move the commercial drone industry forward. So Russ, Gary, you mentioned in the beginning kind of a number of different groups of drones kind of in the ecosystem: military, public, recreational use of drones, and commercial use of drones. And where our focus is really on the commercial drone industry, helping to enable exactly the type of operations that Russ is describing and Dave is describing in the aerial data collection, everything from news gathering to filmmaking, to construction site monitoring, to infrastructure inspection, precision agriculture, and all of the very many benefits of drones that can be used to enhance industry operations. We're excited to try to move that forward. It'll be based both in Silicon Valley and in Washington, D.C., working on both the technology side as well as the policy side, working to battle some of the misperceptions of a lot of people when they hear the word drone across the country, kind of worry about, a drone as a predator or reaper. Is that flying over my backyard? What does that mean? They get freaked out. So we're going to help educate the American public as well on the benefits of drones in the safety and efficiency side, which a lot of folks are still as yet now just learning about.
So we're hearing a lot about drones providing amazing benefits. I have an article on LinkedIn today on drones, and I talk about how there was a competition in Dubai recently and on drones. And what some of the winning contestants had were amazing use cases. For example, for a blind runner, for example, to be able to direct it and be able to go on a run with a drone following them around. There's obviously already cases of medicine being delivered. There's cases of a kid whose life was saved in the middle of a river being delivered a life preserver. There's search and rescue missions being conducted by drones, which, let's be honest, are much more efficient than human beings. I mean, you could detect from infrared the ability of a live human, but you can't be so thorough and precise. So there's so many use cases that are out there. But there are objections, and I want to go through a few of those concerns or objections. You were talking about being on a beach and hanging out there and like having this wonderful lunch delivered to you and suntan lotion. I like that, but when I'm on the beach also, do I really want to have drones going overhead when I'm snoozing? And
it's an interesting question, right? And I think, again, we need to be really respectful of not violating people's lives and the way that they want to live them. If we truly want to enable the luxuries that people would all like to have. So how often do you really, when you're at the beach, get up and go and buy suntan lotion? It's not that often. How often do you really need to get a drink or get food on the beach? It's also not that often. Or let's take it to any other activity. I think it's unlikely that there would be a dramatic transformation of how we behave and how we expect things to come to us, because we eat 3 meals a day. You're not going to suddenly eat 35 meals a day just because it gets to you really easily. Right? You're still going to live your life, and there may be some areas where those things get a little bit abused. But I think I have enormous confidence in people. I think people are great creatures, all want to do good things. And in general, we find ways to work and to live together and to make our lives better. And I think that's the majority of people are really good creatures. And to that extent, we will do the right thing. I mean, if we're respectful of safety, we're respectful of privacy, and we're also respectful of the fact that we're trying to make things happen more efficiently and more effectively, improve our lives, impact literally billions of people, and do it in a way that doesn't destroy our planet, I think these are things we have to do. I think this is not optional.
You're saying the benefits so far outweighs the potential
Absolutely.
harm. We will figure out a way to have conversations about this and do it. There may be drone-free zones, the way there are smoke-free zones or whatever, but that we will balance this out. Now, should this occur at a national level, a multinational level, a state level, a local level? Should little towns start passing drone regulations? What's the fear and what's the ideal situation?
Well, we've certainly seen a lot of states and localities that have been either passed or proposed drone or legislation that would limit UAS use in some way. Now, the FAA, at a federal level, does have jurisdiction over the safety and operations of the national airspace. But they have issued a memo to state and local governments explaining where their jurisdiction lies and instructing not to legislate in those areas. However, the polls show and the data shows, and this might be probably what you're hearing in your towns and communities across the country, is what the American people are really most concerned about are privacy concerns. And that's where there's some gray area, because states and localities actually traditionally regulate on privacy and property rights. And so therefore you're seeing a lot of state and local governments that are proposing laws or rules that would limit drone use in some way based on property rights or privacy rights, which the FAA has explicitly said is allowed. So I know a lot of folks would like to see this all happen at a federal level, but I think kind of as a practical matter, it's not clear that the FAA has the resources to police all of the illegal activity that's out there. So therefore, state and local governments have been, including law enforcement entities, have been quite involved on many of these issues. And given the privacy issues, I think we will continue to see some of that moving forward.
I'll tell you what we do as an organization. We rate all 50 states by how innovation-friendly they are, and we have various criteria. Last year, for example, we did it, and one of the criteria were, are you friendly to the shared economy like Airbnb and Uber and Lyft? This year, we added for the first time, are you friendly towards drones?
Oh.
Meaning more, are you unfriendly to drones, actually, is we penalize you and you go down in our state rankings. So we use a carrot and stick approach on regulation of really groundbreaking type of new forms of businesses and models and products and things like that, because we like innovation. That's what we do.
Well, and we find a lot of policymakers are just overreacting to a constituent concern of, I saw a drone flying in my backyard. There's no data. There's no, there's nothing really to it, but they kind of overreact and say, actually, here in California, there was legislation that was overwhelmingly passed by both houses of the state assembly that would have made it illegal to fly under 350 feet above ground level of anyone's private property and made it automatically a property violation. That would have killed all innovation.
And what did Governor Brown do? Did he sign that legislation?
And he vetoed that legislation.
Good for you, Governor Brown, who's in the building today.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Exactly. But those are the kind of efforts that we need to have, which is, that happened somewhat last minute. We were very grateful that the governor did veto that legislation, but it continues to fester out there, so we need to make sure to continue to educate folks on these kind of issues.
I would comment on that, not that specific topic, but in general, the interaction with legislators, with people that are trying to figure out ways to do things, there's a remarkable level of enthusiasm across the board. Republican, Democrat, Senate, House, local, federal. There's an amazing amount of understanding that there is tremendous value that's waiting to be unleashed here. At the same time, there's this, and I think that's one of the great ways that this country works, is there's this serious consideration for what are the impacts and how do we do this so that it works properly. And the discussions we're having, for example, with the FAA, where there are a few phrases that are now being used all over the place. Performance-based requirements, risk-based requirements. These are the kinds of ideas that enable innovation to take hold. Instead of being prescriptive on a solution, there's prescription on, okay, it just has to do the following in terms of performance level or safety level, and then let industry and anyone who wants to bring resources to the game, go for it.
Yeah,
that's the way you spur innovation, and you turn this solution space loose, and you also ensure that it's done in a responsible way.
Yeah, the whole idea of solutions is so, you take a look at what we do need to guard for, but you look at what the possibilities are. You take Katrina. If drones were allowed to fly, we're working with insurance companies right now to develop a plan for disaster response, to be able to say, how do we employ Lyft to be able to work with the various insurance companies and local FEMA and state officials to be able to say, not just what is the damage, okay, and you can't do that unless you fly over someone's property. What is the damage? What is the relief that's needed? supplies be delivered to them. We just designed and built a virtual care center where it's 300,000 square feet, and there may be one doctor in it, right? Because it's really virtual from all over the country. And they are applying medicine in a number of different places across the U.S. What if you're able then to have doctors there in a centralized area, fly the drone, sit down, he or she's able to ask questions, they're able to take the medicine that's needed, take the supplies that's needed. There's a greater good that we have to contemplate while we are taking serious the issues that are associated with the rights of the property owner.
That's a really great example.
Mm-hmm. It would have been a sea change on how we approach disasters. And one last thing is, you can fly hundreds and thousands of these little drones in a small area. You can't do that with helicopters and airplanes.
It's a great point. Intel demonstrated at CES this year all these different drones avoiding each other. And obviously the avoidance technology is moving very, very quickly. I'm sorry, Lisa.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say catastrophe response is a perfect example of a type of use case that we want to enable. On the policy side, and there are many wonderful champions in the federal government for the use of UAS. They understand the benefits. It also has been somewhat of an imperfect process, kind of making drones fall under the same regulatory structure as manned aviation, treating an airplane the same as a very small drone leads to some absurd results, right? So the 333 exemption is just one example of you're asking for, you have to ask for, make the safety case that you're flying at an equivalent level of safety as if you were flying an airplane. For example, you will have a manual on board. You can't have a manual on board a drone, as you're required to do. Right. But one of the requirements in manned aviation is that a NOTAM, a Notice to Airmen, is issued. And because of that, the catastrophe response use case is very challenging because in order to have a NOTAM issued 24 to 48 hours in advance, by definition, you don't have that notice. So there are a lot of imperfections kind of coming from the existing regulatory structure that many of us are working hard to change with champions in government who understand kind of the absurd results that are coming from the regulatory framework and hoping to move things forward relatively quickly.
When cars were first introduced, there was a law in one of the states that no car could go faster than a horse.
Yeah.
I guess I'm dating myself here. And even when airplanes came in, there was the view at the time was that your property went all the way down to the center of the earth and all the way up to the sky. And I think it got to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the law is not an ass.
Yeah, so that's the Cosby case, which are
okay.
From the 1940s. And the question, and this comes up in the drone context all the time. Companies want to know, do I own the airspace above my land? Because if so, I want to be able to fly in my own airspace. Others want to know, do I own the airspace above my land? Because I don't want my neighbor flying in my backyard. But there's a lot of question right now out there of a big public policy issue. How much of the airspace do I own? And that Cosby case was in the manned aircraft context. There was a military aircraft flying very low over a family's property, and 83 feet over the family's property to be exact. And the family had a chicken coop, and every time the aircraft would fly very low over the property, would scare the chickens, kill the chickens. So the family brought suit against the federal government. It was a takings case, and the federal government, and the argument that was made was, he who owns the land owns the sky above infinitely. And the Supreme Court said, in the era of manned aircraft, it doesn't make any sense to say that you own all of the sky above your land. However, the airspace that is within your immediate control, and 83 feet is within your immediate control, you do own that. And so they actually ended up winning the case. And that's the precedent that we have here now in the drones world, which with regard to airspace rights. But it's a hot topic these days, and we're seing a lot of
what's the answer?
Legislation as well. Well, a lot of folks have different answers. Google's done some work on this, as well as some others. But there are some proposals out there. Perhaps the reality is we're going to need space to fly. And so perhaps it makes sense I own the 200 feet over my property. From 200 to 500 feet is where commercial drones can fly, and public drones can fly, and other drones. There's going to need to be highways in the sky. And this is something where NASA is taking the lead for the federal government on designing an unmanned traffic management system, and the private sector is very active and involved with that effort as well. But we really need to create that infrastructure in order to really enable the growth of this industry.
That's great. Intel, some of you might have noticed, was supposed to be on this panel. Their representative was called away by a government official to testify in another state. But they did offer to release their video, which has not been shown outside of Intel before, and I really want to see it. So can we tee up the Intel video and start running it? Because it's supposed to be really cool, and this is its worldwide release. We're all lucky enough, I think.
I'm just really excited. Flying 100 drones. It's the first time in the US that we'll be doing this. With Intel, I think we're experimenting with events like this, where we really start to stretch the limits of how you control 100 robots in the air at once.
We're excited to use these Intel drones to fly Drone 100 tonight. We worked with the FAA to walk them through step by step what our technology does. We've done multiple tests, and this is how we know that we can make it a success tonight.
We've actually done this in Germany, and it was absolutely incredible. And so we're able to get an exemption from the FAA, and so this will be the first time we're able to fly numerous drones with a single operator here in the US.
I'm really excited to show it to a group and show them what's possible. Our goal is to be able to do this over stadiums, to do this over events that have large populations. We have visions of going from 100 to 1,000 over time. Like, that's really what I see in the future.
How cool is that? I mean, it's exciting because what you see with Google, what you see with Intel, like these are mega huge, multinational, global, successful companies, and the CEO themselves, you could tell that, you know, Brian Krzanich is personally engaged. You were telling me earlier that the CEO of Intel is personally, I mean, it's cool. I mean, this isn't just pie in the, well, I guess it is pie in the sky.
Pie will come to you through the sky.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to open it up to questions. Feel free, don't be embarrassed. I see one right over here. Yes, sir. Well, please identify yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
okay.
on.
Good morning. My name is Scott Heatham, and I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. I enjoy flying my manned aircraft, but I like the vision. I really do love the vision of the drone technology. Obviously, I'm going to say my concerns are safety and security. And safety, the real-world application, I flew one of the first C-17s into Biloxi right after Katrina, and it was some of the scariest airspace because we established a restricted zone, and you had a lot of support agencies flying helicopters, and I had to navigate my way using my eyes and ears to make my way down to that airfield that they were still clearing off. I flash forward, you know, maybe 10, 15 years and see that same environment with drones where I'll see 10 times the amount of drone activity. The need for collaboration, obviously policy and regulation are still being established on this, is very real and can really put a lot of good people in harm's way. From a security standpoint, which is a little different lane than safety, but where do you see security fitting in to the direct delivery? Because that is kind of the holy grail to be able to get something to somebody at a specific point in time, place.
Well, thank you for your service. First of all, thank you for raising excellent questions. Dave, do you want to take at least the first one?
Yeah, so I think, again, I mentioned that earlier, both safety and security need to be very respectfully addressed. And if you think of the notion around the way the airspace works in a collaborative sense, it is that safety and security come through identity. You identify yourself as a participant in the airspace. The pilots identify themselves to each other. The airplanes are tail numbered or flight numbered, or whatever the identifier may be, and is identified to air traffic control. That way the airspace in a collaborative sense works. Now, clearly, we also have to address the security aspects. And just flip the page a little bit and look at the way that it gets dealt with in the world of the internet. And things today have a little additional thing on HTTP. It has an S, and that S is the secure part of connecting on the web, where there's all kinds of very, very successfully introduced and continued development ongoing today, where you can transact business on the internet extremely securely if you just do the right steps. We think that same thinking can be transported here into the digitization of aviation and truly make it secure and make authentication and identification a key and integral part to accomplishing security in the airspace. And I think you saw in that Intel video, there are a number of videos like that are around on YouTube or on the web, where you can see tremendous collaboration in a very safe way with a large number of vehicles in very compact space. This is transformational, right? This is not the way things are possible to be done today with large vehicles, or with the limitations of trying to do that with all the spatial and situational awareness that you need in order to do that safely. The automation of the kind of things we're talking about, which is a collaborative airspace, knowledge about every other airplane that's around, what it's doing, what its plan is, what its current status is, and therefore every one of the vehicles can cooperate collaboratively to stay out of each other's way, and also to allow large vehicles in when they need to. This is the idea behind NextGen or CSAR, and those are great ideas. And right now we have the opportunity to turn that into reality in this microcosmic version of it, low altitude, small, and truly build that experience base where it gets done safely and securely.
So how will it work? I mean, right now what I saw with that Intel demo is the drones can avoid each other.
Yeah.
And I assume drones will be able to avoid birds and even helicopters that are relatively slow moving. But if you're coming along in I don't know, how fast do you fly? 200 or 300 miles an hour. Well, what's the implication there?
Yeah, so
I assume you don't have anything already in that aircraft which allows you to see a drone and get around it quickly, right?
Unless they have
transponders. Yeah, so exactly. The ADS-B transceivers, transponders, there's MODAS, there's UAT in the US. These are basically devices, and there'll be future versions of this. And those devices are very simply, I tell you where I am, how fast I'm going, what my intent is, you tell me, and everyone else exchanges that. And that information in the world of data, in the digital world, is really easy to cause collaboration to occur. So the coordination of knowledge, based on the knowledge of what's going on, the coordination of the vehicles is really easy. It's really difficult if you're doing it by, I need to call you, and I need to call Lisa, and I need to call Russ, I need to call Lieutenant Colonel over there, and do it verbally, because we all have to give each other time to talk, and the transaction takes so much time. 200 miles an hour is maybe how fast you want to fly. The drones fly up to 100 miles an hour at low altitude, and that means you're covering on the order of closing speeds 300 miles per hour. So turn that into, let's say it's 300 knots, that's about 150 meters a second. So if you take 1 second for me and you to talk, that's 150 meters that went away. Another second to Lisa, another 150 meters. So we cannot wait that long. Right?
So you're like talking about the difference between the Canadian air traffic control system, which is pretty automatic, versus the American, which is essentially people talking to each other and not understanding each other. I mean, as an analogy.
I don't know, quite honestly, what the various levels are in terms of the automation. I do know the way ATC works in general. There's a tremendous amount of people-to-people conversation that coordinates the traffic, leveraging a lot of the technologies that are out there to help that coordination to happen. But it's not, the whole thing is not done in a fully automated way.
So when will we reach that ideal, and where are we today?
So what we talked about last year at NASA's UTM conference, the Unmanned Traffic Management Conference, we launched the idea, and we held 2 seminars over last year, one in Silicon Valley, one in DC, where we launched the ideas of an integrated air traffic, initially low altitude, and we call them airspace service providers. These airspace service providers provide the entire means by which anyone can build an ASP. They connect to each other in the way the internet applications connect to each other, things called APIs. And information is exchanged, and things work in a very, very fast, integrated, safe, multi-dimensional way to coordinate all that data and coordinate the vehicles ultimately. And this is what we're building. We're building these ASPs. We're launching one right now. I know yesterday Gaur Kimchi, VP of Primaire at Amazon, talked about their version of it. There's a lot of common intersection aspects of what we're talking about, what they're talking about, what UTM is talking about. There's an entire industry moving around this idea, and NASA's playing a great role of sort of being this impartial platform, so to speak, where all the companies can get together, move the technology and the ideas along, and we're literally flying demonstrations every month, and the companies are launching solutions. So this is happening right now, and this is one of those great examples where you don't have to have a long rulemaking process or dictating what the answer needs to be. As long as we subscribe to existing standard operating procedures, standard protocols, existing regulations, we can make this happen.
So this is voluntary industry standard setting in cooperation with government without a mandate. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
It's not really industry standard setting. Think of the way which I described earlier, standard operating procedures that already work for manned aviation. If we turn those into an automated version, so we don't need new ones, we just automate those, and the industry is already collaborating on doing that. It's wonderful, right? It just happens.
That's great. Did you want to say anything about that, or?
Yeah, well, I've flown into relief missions as well, and it's nothing more dangerous. That and air shows, right? But this actually thrills me, speaking with David and Lisa, and the whole idea of the Drone Alliance is to get this automation advanced forward so that when we do fly into those areas, there is a controlled airspace. It's just like an aviator can get spatial disorientation. What we're taught to do, right, is stay on autopilot. Well, when there was first aviation, a pilot would have thought that was insanity. You know, you let the machine fly itself, it couldn't possibly do that. But now it's standard operation. If we get spatial disorientation, you put the autopilot on. Same thing here. If we can automate air traffic control, especially in very dense areas, then we can provide a greater sense of clarity about where everybody is. You, as the aviator, can be much more aware of what's going on around if you're not bothered with actually flying the plane, right? And that's what we see over and over in the way military is trained, and that's really what David and Lisa, or David's talking about, and Lisa's working to enable with the Drone Alliance and her law firm.
So this is, I've done a lot on driverless cars, and this is like the total, I mean, this is just a transitional issue. When you get to driverless cars, you don't have these problems. And I know, and you also talked about your vision of essentially pilotless airplanes as well, and that's, or pilotless cars. We have someone in the audience, or we did before, who is he still here? Who has a company doing that? No, our friend is not. Do you want to, can you just grab the mic and tell us what you're doing? Could we have the microphone right over here? Raise your hand. And just in under a minute, because keep it simple.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. My name is Russ. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Aeromobile, the flying car company. So I'm absolutely sharing your vision that we need to lift transportation from two-dimensional space into the three-dimensional space because it will be much more efficient, much more sustainable. We don't need to build another infrastructure because there is already one called the air. So at the moment, we have the fully functional prototype of the 4th generation. We are working closely with EASA, as we are a European-based company, on certification, and the plan is to have it on the market in 2 years.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please go up to him afterwards. It's really fascinating, and like when you see flying cars around, you're seeing the pioneers are right here. That's kind of, I don't know whether it's a flying car or a flying whatever it is, without a driver. It's amazing. And we're not trying to put you guys in the Air Force out of work. Don't worry. You still need your skills. I saw a question right up here. If we could bring the microphone up. Okay, right here, and then you next, okay? So right here. Identify yourself, please.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Nick Smoot with Mountain Man Ventures. I have a drone company in my portfolio, and one of the questions I have, what's the most compassionate use of drones that will help the general public embrace drones? There's many good uses, but what do you see as the most compassionate one? Because we truly know that's what moves the needle with society.
The hallmark moment? You want to go down the line?
Yeah, well, I would tell you the example I gave earlier in everyday life, right? There are people that are just simply inaccessible to healthcare. Being able to fly a drone to the Appalachians that are far out or out west in a very isolated area, to be able to take the best healthcare that we have to offer, and then be able to prescribe medicine for that without them ever leaving their home is one of the most compassionate and cost-lowering things socially that I believe that we could do. There's lots of ramifications, but to me, that's my dream for Lyft, is that we'll be a big part of enabling that for our society, because I believe that's the greater good.
Lisa.
Yeah, humanitarian uses. So whether disaster response, catastrophe response. There's a group called UAviators that's doing amazing work around the world, in Nepal, wherever folks need help, where drones can go, where people cannot in the wake of disasters. I think that's a hugely compassionate use.
I'll go back to the 3-year-old who wandered away in the forest and the drone finds him. Once that story comes out, it will happen. Yeah. I know it will happen. Then, after a few days of looking for him, distraught parents on national TV, CNN doesn't have a political campaign to cover. They start covering other stuff that's continuing tragedy. Drones resolve it. That'd be cool.
So I think those are all correct. I think there's another real passion I have, which is we truly do need to be good stewards of our planet Earth. It's the only one we got today. And there's a lot that we can do here with automation of aviation that truly can address enormously the impact we have today on how we're truly kind of abusing thousands, millions, hundreds of millions of years of putting carbon under the ground in fossil fuels, and we're putting that back into the air. And we kind of need to take that seriously, I think. And I think...
Can I push back on that just for a second?
Sure.
So what will power the drone?
Beg your pardon?
What will power drones?
Electrical.
And where will the electricity come from?
So I think that's the big push. The electricity needs to come from renewable, sustainable resources. And that way, I mean, if you look at what is available today, there's obviously a whole new dimension in this world of figuring out how to do sustainable power generation for the planet. Right. And there are very, very workable solutions. We need to take them seriously and go and do them.
Well, Al Gore was here yesterday talking about that. So I saw a question right over here. Okay, can we have the microphone over here, second row on the far side?
Hi there, my name is Robert Entschulliger. I'm actually in the process of applying for a patent application for a drone right now. You made some compelling reasons, or you shared with us today compelling reasons to free up the airspace legally for drones, and I'm certainly with you on that. I guess as far as the security and safety, just some low-hanging fruit concerns I have is when you're the beach scenario, when you're having a sunblock delivered, drug dealers delivering drugs. I mean, how would that be prevented? I just don't see how that actually how that could be stopped. And secondly, in the same way that terrorists can buy an anonymous cell phone, buy an anonymous drone and deliver a bomb. What measures do you see in place or potentially in place to stop those things?
Yeah, there's already actually a drone delivery that was unauthorized to a prison, I recall. Any comments on that?
Well, you can't keep a drug dealer out of a car either, but we're not going to outlaw cars. I mean, the key is we've got to enable law enforcement. I mean, it creates another dimension, but that dimension's here today. I mean, they can do that now. They may be doing that now. It is a great thought, and it's an excellent question. But again, I'm really stressing the Drone Alliance because I think it's got a definite place, because when you decide to create regulation that's focused on enablement, then we can stay focused on all the accoutrements around it, like law enforcement, that need to be able to integrate with that to ensure that it stays on the up and right, just like we do with everything else we have in society.
Well, the drug delivery question, I understand the analogy, but the bomb delivery question, right now there's not an easy way to deliver a bomb other than a suicide.
You can rent a helicopter.
You can rent a helicopter.
Helicopters are a high burden. It's pretty expensive.
Hang on, what happened in 9/11?
Yeah,
pardon me?
What happened on 9/11?
Right.
How did the people train to do 9/11?
Absolutely, but we've dealt with that. So let's be honest, what we're doing is creating another delivery mechanism that's available to the public, if you will.
I could go out, anybody with a flying license, actually anyone with the money to rent a helicopter on a beach, specifically on the beach with sightseeing tours, can carry a satchel that has a bomb in it, fly over a beach, hey, fly me over there, and drop it.
I think there's so many unbelievably positive things that come out of this. Think of the car chases that happen with huge vehicles driving really fast, and how often those car chases end up in a very, very bad accident. You could have a drone chasing the car, a drone blocking the car. You could have a drone just tagging it until it runs out of fuel.
So drones could. What you're doing is you're saying, here's a terrible case, but this is why drones are good. So we have to balance the good versus the bad.
Exactly. And if we all stopped doing things because they might be nefarious players, we would do nothing. You might as well not get out of bed.
Totally with you.
Well, that's right. And I was just going to say, all technology can obviously be used for good and for bad. But there's also technology being developed that would help, like the counter UAV technology, counter drone technology that would help detect, identify, track rogue drones of the type that you're describing. So you know, that's a kind of separate industry that's as well developing in connection with the drones industry. They're very like-minded companies that are counter UAV companies that want to enable good use of drones while making sure that we're minimizing the bad use of drones. So this is just another area where I do think there are technological solutions to some of the concerns that we
I agree. Final question on a 1 to 10. This is it. Sorry. This is my final question. The time has actually elapsed, but I apologize. Come up after. 1 to 10 scale. 10 being like amazingly the best technology ever. 1 being up there with the toilet seat cover. How important is this drone technology and where it's going in terms of improving humanity?
Well, as a platform, the technology itself, but as a platform, 10.
Okay.
10.
10.
Okay, we average 10. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's hear it for the panelists.